once again. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has declared Bola Tinubu as the winner of the 2023 presidential elections. INEC Chairman Yakubu Mahmoud, declared Tinubu the winner of the election and president-elect this morning at the International Conference Center, Abuja. A total of 18 presidential candidates contested the elections, which were held across the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory on Saturday. Mahmoud
announced that Tinubu, a former Lagos State governor and the candidate of the All Progressives Congress (APC), won the election with the majority of votes cast in 36 states of Nigeria and the FCT. What that means is still to be decided by a number of Nigerians who have expressed their discontent.
I, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, hereby certify that I am the returning officer for the 2023 presidential election held on the 25th of February 2023. That Tinubu Bola Ahmed of the having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected.
The National Chairman, Senator Abdullahi, thank you. You from Senate. Governorship, made history of navigating a very large political party to make a president. It's not a small letter in history. It's a big letter of achievement. A great hit. Thank you very much.
Oh, of course, there you have it, the APC candidate Bola Tinubu, who, of course, polled 8,794,726 votes to defeat fellow contenders Atiku Abubakar of the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, who polled 6,984,520 votes, and the Labour Party's Peter Obi, who had 6,101,533 votes to come third. And of course, the candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso, with 1,496,687 votes. And, others, Yele Showore and a few others who also contested. Of the 36 states and the FCT, Tinubu, Obi, and Atiku won 12 states each, while Kwankwaso won just Kano State. Of course, you remember the election was postponed till Sunday, 26th of February in some polling units in different states due to violence, logistics issues, and of course, theft of beavers issues, a little bit of, voter intimidation in certain parts of the country, and of course, failure of the beavers system, which we spoke about, extensively here. But Bola Tinubu has been declared winner, and of course, we will continue to share with you details, of course, as Nigeria continues to, have these discussions and decide what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid conversation as to what happens next. We've seen a plethora of arguments as regards him being announced as president-elect, right? And one of the conversations would be the interpretation of the Constitution, specifically Section 134, which I'm going to read. It says, a candidate for an election to the office of president shall be deemed to have been duly elected, where there being only two candidates for the election. 1, he has the majority of votes cast at the election, and 2, he has not less than 1/4 of the votes cast at the election in each of at least 2/3 of the states in the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. That particular clause, is something that has been subject to several interpretations. On the one hand, they're saying, okay, are we saying not less than 2/3 of these states, including the FCT? What is that and? What is it interpreted as? Is it saying and the FCT? And why this has, come up as a conversation is because those in support of the obedience movement have argued that Peter Obi did win more than 25% in the FCT. And so there are several interpretations. One of the interpretations will be that 25% is talking about 25% in the FCT, not in all the states as a general. Just mixed reactions. But let's have a public affairs analyst this morning join us. We have Patrick Ugochukwu to analyze this even further. Good morning, Patrick, and thank you very much for joining us. First of all, I think we'll start by asking how you feel knowing that the presidential candidate or the president-elect has been announced by INEC. Interesting, is it not interesting that they chose to announce at night?
Yeah, good morning to you guys in the studio and Nigerians watching. Yeah, I think it's disheartening to watch the entire process and the fact that the faith of Nigerians again have been dashed. We've been disappointed by the transparency of the process or the lack of, and just the fact that INEC itself hasn't obeyed its own guidelines, right? And there's just a lot of disappointment on the streets of Nigeria. That's the truth.
Yeah, I mean, when you say disappointment, where's the disappointment from? And of course, the two opposition parties now, Labour Party and the PDP, did come together yesterday to express themselves, and call for cancellation of the results and all of that. Why would you say that, that was ignored, and the discrepancies that they were speaking about and pointing out, were seemingly almost ignored by INEC?
Yeah, but again, let's not forget that the INEC, in the run-up to these elections, did state categorically that results will be transmitted from the polling units, right? So after votes have been casted and counted, the results will be uploaded directly to the INEC IRF server, right? None of this happened in a significant number of areas across the country. So that alone leaves the process to be questioned. And then it leaves the entire process to be questioned by Nigerians, because what was seen, the results that are trickled in from all the states and have been tallied do not necessarily represent, the will and the wishes of Nigerians, right? It's quite obvious, right? From the evidence that we have in the public domain, right? From the videos, from pictures of the result sheet and the polling units. And if you go to the INEC website, right, the IRF website, and you're looking at the results, from each polling unit, from each ward collation center, you would see that most of those results have been significantly altered, right? And that leaves the process to be questioned by Nigerians, right? Look, if the APC candidate had won fair and square, I don't think you'd have a lot of people throwing these questions. I don't think you'd have the press conference by the PDP and the Labour Party and the ADC yesterday. The fact still remains that INEC itself didn't follow its own stated guidelines, right? And that leaves, that kind of leaves a sore taste in the mouth of Nigerians.
I mean, it's interesting that you talk about this because, saying that this leaves a sour taste in the mouth of Nigerians. Let's talk about the kind of image that this would project Nigeria when we look at it from the perspective of the international community. We've had independent observers in Nigeria during the course of the elections. There are people who have written opinion articles. Chimamanda, for example, did write about this as well. What we've seen, or what a number of people have complained about, would be the inconsistencies with the results that were tallied at the polling unit, as well as the ones that were uploaded on the portal. In some cases, when you go on the portal, you see pictures of some of the presiding officers as opposed to picture of the poll, the results that was collected at the polls. There's been complaints of that. There's been complaints of vote buying. Interestingly, you would think that the cash crunch would have in some way regulated that. There were complaints of bullying. There were complaints of assault. And all of these have blatantly been ignored by INEC, and an announcement has been made. What do you think that this tells the international community about Nigerians and Nigeria?
Okay, so I'm compelled to remember a picture of Stacey Abrams, and Stacey Abrams was part of the international observers, and there's a picture of her on Twitter, and she looks downcast and just disappointed with the entire process, right? And that picture speaks, speaks loud volumes, right? And just the fact that, a simple guideline, right, embedded in the electoral law, and the INEC chairman himself came out and said, look, results will be uploaded directly from the polling units, right? And none of that happened, right? Maybe for the senatorial and for the House of Reps elections, it did happen, but for the presidential elections, we know that, in significant areas of the country, those results might not uploaded. And that's number one. Number two is, there were international observers that went across polling units across most of our metropolis, like Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, and they saw widespread violence, they saw widespread disenfranchisement, right? The picture of this electoral process for most international observers would be, is Nigeria really serious about moving forward? Have we matured as a democracy? Have we evolved as a society that understands its responsibility in Africa, right? Because the development of Africa itself is tied to Nigeria's ability to rise above this mediocrity that will become so used to, right? This electoral process will be vigorously litigated in court. There's no doubt about that. But the question still remains that, are we really serious about moving forward? Is there an elite consensus, right, within the political establishment and the political elites, that Nigeria needs to move away from this kangaroo attitude, from this from this thuggery and gangsterism that has captured the state, right? Because I feel for Nigerians who live abroad, they will be treated even worse, right? After the scenes that have marred these elections.
Well, not necessarily. I think Nigeria still continues to work on its image in the international community, and of course, I think the Nigerian missions in different countries, across the world, will continue to ensure that the Nigerian image is not always continuously polished. And the true story of the hard-working, honest nature of a Nigerian will, hopefully be told. But let's also bring in Ishaya Inuwa. He's the Executive Director, International Organization for Peace Building and Social Justice. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Inuwa. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for bringing me in here. Sorry, I am not very kept. I was watching the polls through the night, so I hardly brushed my tooth to be here. So,
well, a lot of Nigerians are, pretty much saying. Well, let's quickly get your views on the electoral process so far. Of course, the APC candidate being declared winner, and of course, what do you think happens next?
Well, what happened next? To be honest, even before saying that, is to say that I'm disappointed with the way this election went through. Not for who wins or who doesn't win, but that the election was marred by some irregularities. It would have been fair for INEC to hold that collation and attend to those issues than to make this hasty, what we call fallacy of hasty induction. When you fail to compare all variables together and arrive at conclusion, we say that is a fallacy of hasty induction. And I hope this is not going to hurt us as a nation. But going forward, we are an organization that is working for peace building, and we have been doing that across many communities. So we understand the issues in Nigeria. And when we attend to issues, we attend to them from evidence-based research. We don't just go into issues without knowing the deep-seated issues or root causes of issues. So we start dealing with them from there. And I can tell you that we have information about, tons of information about the ills of this nation. Going forward is that we continue to build for peace. On the 20th of February, I held a press conference because 20th of February of every year is termed as World Day for Social Justice. And during that press conference, I said, irrespective of who wins in this election, there is need to look at the issues of injustice that are littered everywhere in Nigeria and attend to them, because lack of peace anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We can't pretend as though all is well with us when many people are feeling that they have not been served justice. So it's important to pay attention to these truths. That going forward, I will call on the other parties, political parties, to seek redress in a legal way. I mean, you can seek for peace anywhere. That's the way out. If we go into anarchy and protest and all of these kind of things, we are going to burn ourselves. Nigeria is the only nation we have. I have traveled far and near, and I just know that the adage that says no place like home is true and very valid. So I will call for peace. But my hesitation really is that peace is a product of justice, is a consequence of justice. And where there is no justice, sometimes you can't find peace. Senator Bola Tinubu have a long way to go in rebuilding this nation. This I must tell you, because you must build the trust of the people. But the question is, how can people trust you? So I think we are going on a path and a trajectory that does not seem good for us. But by the same token, I'm saying, please, let's speak for peace. Let's call for peace. But while we are doing that, and I'm telling you in an hour, I'm going to walk out of this place. I have press conference, and we are going to talk with all of our partners everywhere to say, speak for peace. Because without peace, there is no prosperity. Without peace, you won't be here on this TV. Without peace, we won't just be able to do anything. And so it's important we call for peace. But while doing that, we must be objective on the other hand. And what I mean is that we must speak the truth without hesitating, because it's only truth that would set us free in the end. You cannot build a castle on a sand, on a sinking sand. It won't stand, you know. And so the INEC chairman has made a fallacy of hasty induction, and he stood on illegality because you can't continue to violate your own laws. You have told Nigerians that the beavers would work and we are going to transmit electronically. It was on the election day that they recanted on their words. And I mean, where does this happen? We are becoming a ridicule, and people are mocking us everywhere in the world. We are losing our dignity. While Nigerians are fighting and working hard to make a name and to build other civilizations, we here at home are making ourselves nothing but a point of being ridiculed at. I mean, it's not right. Congratulations to Bola Tinubu if he deserves that, but I just know that the procedures that produced him are marred by irregularities, and it's important to attend to them. So the way out is to attend to the issues that are pending.
I'd like to quickly jump in, to talk about some things that you've said. You've talked about the fact that this is a fallacy of hasty induction, and that a rephrasing of some of the things you said would be that you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand, meaning that, you did say that you cannot make legality out of illegality, something in that regard. Some of the other things that, the complaints that we've seen, or that young people and people around the country in general and outside the country have aired, would be the fact that a lot of money was disbursed for the conducting of these elections, about 355 billion naira. There have also been, you did say that INEC has broken a number of its own laws. If you start from the beginning, going back to even just coming early, the presiding officers all came, a lot of them came late, the beavers wasn't working, some basic laws there that were not, really kept upheld. There have been calls for the resignation of Mahmoud Yakubu. Do you think that this would maybe in some way seem to be justice? Do you see this happening? And, what is the way forward for INEC?
Well, so there is a mutual distrust between the citizens and the government. And you know very well that here in Nigeria, we virtually don't have any functional system. What I mean by this is, if you look at education as a system, it has collapsed. Our curriculums are obsolete, and the infrastructure is dilapidated. And our professors, many of them have been reduced to rigging machines, in all fairness. So if you look at a system, we don't have a functional system. But just the way I spoke about education, so also is the judiciary. You all know, see, we owe ourselves the truth. Let's stop beating around the bush. Judiciary as a system has collapsed because there is no respect for rule of law. People don't honor court decisions. Not too long ago, the Supreme Court, gave a verdict about the change of currency. Was it upheld? And you know that justice will go to the powerful and the rich. This is our nation. And I'm speaking as a Nigerian from the office of the citizen of Nigeria. This is the truth. So when they said seek redress in court, the question I put to you is, will there be answers in court? Will the court be fair to them? I think somewhere INEC and her syndicate believes that once this is declared, you cannot get anything from the court because we are the ones who pull the triggers. We are the ones who appoint people that sit as judges in our own court. So honestly, I'm doubting if there would be a justice to PDP and Labour who are calling for, yesterday we saw the press conference where they said abort or stop the collation. They called for cancellation, but INEC played the dumb and continued until they arrive at this announcement. So I do not think justice would come from the court of law. But, so way forward is for me to call Council of States and all our retired service chiefs and religious leaders that have reputation and men of character and integrity to come around the table and discuss the truth and the destiny of this nation. Let's not play with it. Let's not play with it. He who does not earn the right to rule cannot earn the right for people to follow. If we don't handle these things carefully, we might go on a path where it will be like the survival of the fittest. Agitations are rising. We have no idea what Nigeria will look like today. But again, I am just saying that where can we find peace? We need to speak for peace and we need to say the truth. That's the way out. Let me add this. This is Zoom. We are conversing over Zoom. Zoom is a social media platform. What people are trying to make us believe is that all the irregularities that we are going through social medias on Facebook that all of you have seen, all of the thuggery, all of the disenfranchisement by beavers, I am speaking to you as one who never had the opportunity to cast my vote. And I stayed there for about 18 hours because the beavers failed. And we advocated for it. I called the INEC electoral officer of my local government. He came to the place. I called on Channels TV. They interviewed it. It was on Channels TV for the record. Over 200 people in my polling unit never voted. And the result that was collated from those who have casted their votes was not what was announced. And I can tell you of other polling units around my place. I was an observer in the election. I drove around my city. And so if you say social media is falsehood, the things flying there are not true, then everything we are doing here is not true.
Let's quickly bring in let's quickly bring back Patrick Ugochukwu and just quickly share. Bola Tinubu has been declared winner. It's likely, of course, from what it seems. I can't say it's likely, but there's possibilities that there would be court cases. The other political parties will approach the tribunal and all of that. But in the interim, of course, if he is sworn in and moving forward, what do you think the prospects are for Nigeria under a Bola Tinubu presidency?
About the prospects, I'm not too positive about that. If you read his manifesto, if you study the manifesto, there's a particular line in financing infrastructural projects that is largely based on printing currency and then using that currency to finance projects across the country, right? If that plan goes through, what you're going to have is massive inflation in the economy, because you're going to have so much of our local currencies chasing so much goods in the economy, and that's going to lead to inflation, among several other policies that were not really explained in that manifesto. Another worry is that because he didn't participate in the debates and the town halls that were held by different media houses, we do not really know if he was actively involved in drafting those documents, right? We didn't really have a proper interface or proper interactions with him, and so as of this moment, it is really vague, the approach that he would take to governance, especially with the economy and dealing with issues of insecurity there. So not a whole lot of confidence. I don't want to sound pessimistic, I want to be optimistic about our country, but there's just a whole lot that leaves a lot to be desired. And I think I'll just end on that note.
All right, several people have showed their reactions, especially on social media networks, as to the results that have been announced. I'm going to read a quote from Chimamanda's article, and this was an article that she wrote about, it's an opinion guest essay, and the title is, "My Country is in a Fragile Place." She wrote this for the New York Times. And in the last 2 paragraphs, she said, I'm just going to quickly quote that as I ask, all right. She said, besides, my tongue is lodged in my cheek. You don't want a wave of Nigerian asylum seekers fleeing the unbearable discontent of living under an illegitimate government. Now, she said this because, of course, she was urging the world to pay attention to what is going on in Nigeria, and in some cases, the injustice that has been meted out to the average Nigerians who have not only been disenfranchised, but have been bullied at the 2023 general elections. I'm going to ask you again, to both of you, do you think that the results of these elections would have an impact on migration? Do you see maybe a number of young people coming back into the country or leaving the country, like they call it Japa? What impact do you think this will have on the trending Japa season?
You want me to go first?
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so you already had an overwhelming Japa syndrome already happening before these elections. And the only reason why most youths were planning to stay back was that people were wishing, and that Labour Party candidate emerges as the winner of these elections. I think that what you're going to see following the announcement of these results is you're going to see an even more aggressive Japa syndrome by most youths. Most people do not believe in the APC again, anyways, and so most people will be filing their documents. People will be looking at leaving this country very soon. No doubt about that.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Inuwa.
Yeah, so I spent the last 2 days, when I began to notice how the elections were going, I spent the last 2 days thinking what to do with my family, because I don't want them to live in a nation that is very depressive, and you can walk on the street and you will sense despair, because this was like the last rope of hope that many people were holding on to. I've been a strong advocate of the fact that there is hope for this nation. I think that hope is injured. I'm not saying I have given up on it, but to be honest with you, that hope is injured. I know today many people who have been listening to me would be asking me, what can you say? And again, for me, it's not APC or Senator Tinubu that is my problem. But you have to look at the processes and the procedures that brought this man to power. They were marred by corruption and illegalities. So how can I expect something positive from him? And like my brother said, I do not think I am positive about what it will look like in the coming months and years if this election is upheld. Now, Nigerians at diaspora, those who had been living in their droves, I think they will just permanent their stay wherever they are. And I can tell you, if you see Nigerians coming back, maybe they have been deported. Nobody would want to come back to this Nigeria because so much have gone down the trenches of this nation that makes that people,
Very quickly, we have 1 minute, so in like 15 seconds each. Was there at least some form of silver lining in these elections for you? Was there something that stood out or that showed hope for you? And I'll start with you, Mr. Inuwa.
No, my hope is deep from within, not from anything without. I don't see anything that gives hope or that inspires hope from the processes.
All right.
So I'm just encouraging myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well.
And to you?
I think to me the only silver lining was massive youth participation. That's number one, and number two was a lot of people in urban areas voting across the ethnic divide, especially in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, regardless of the results that were recorded in these places. Right, massive turnout and youth participation. That's the only positive that we can take out of the entire process.
Well, I would just quickly mention that it's an election, and I don't necessarily want us to make the conversation seem like it's dark clouds all over Nigeria and everybody's gloomy. I'm sure there are people who are celebrating. It's left for the opposition parties to, well, like we always would say, approach the court or legal means of seeking redress, and we'll see if there will be any changes or not. But for now, I personally just don't want us to make it seem like some doomsday happened across the country. There's people who believe that it was free and fair and there was nothing wrong with the process, including the INEC chairman. And so let's also speak for those people. So Mr. Inuwa and of course Patrick Ugochukwu, thank you very much for joining us this morning for this conversation. We'd like to speak with you both again as quickly as possible.
Thank you for having me.